Welcome to the Root of Power podcast, where I teach you how to chase your joy, find alignment, and create a life and a business that you love, using actionable methods, interviews, and inspiring stories from people who know that true freedom is found within. I'm your host, your always hype woman and sometimes ass kicker, Amanda Chills, and I am so proud of you for choosing to step into your power. Come along, we've got dreams to build. Okay, my love, I have put everything that I offer for free on one page so that we are not doing more work than we have to, because why would we do that? Hashtag work smarter, not harder. So livemyhappyhealth.com/free. You are going to find everything I've created for not only leveling up in your personal life and building a life that you love, but leveling up in your business life and building a business that you love. Okay? livemyhappyhealth.com/free. Love you. Welcome. Everyone rolls with it. Like, whatever. None of us are perfect. We just roll. Kim, hi. We worked together for, I should really look it up before I talk to people, but I think it was probably a couple years.
Yeah. At least 2019, maybe early 2020.
Oh, wow.
Because I think it was pre-COVID, I think.
I think so too, but I feel like COVID was the last decade.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have no idea. Oh, you're right. Yeah. We started in April 2020. So you had me when I was still a baby private practice, not a baby therapist, but a baby private practice. And you were very interesting. Well, you're just interesting as a human being. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on was, one, you have such a wonderful sense of humor that I think people are just going to love you. And if they hate you, they have bad taste. That's not our problem.
Right.
And I'm getting a wide range of what people have gone through. And I know that you went through a very intense, traumatic situations, multiple. And feel free to share as much of that as you want. But you actually came to me, your ex-husband found me.
Yep.
And he did not do so well.
No.
Ended therapy, stopped coming, and you are thriving. So you can tell us as much of that story as you'd like. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, the marriage wasn't going well, and I was wanting to get out, and I was given, I guess, basically an ultimatum. I couldn't get a divorce, so I went to therapy. It had to be marriage counseling. And he picked the therapist. That was the deal.
Mm.
And I agreed to it, but my deal was I would go the first visit by myself. Mm-hmm. And that's what he did. And I pretty much just was like, hey, I'm here for marriage counseling, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I need you to help me get out of this.
Yeah, which was so brave of you, because, with therapy, there is that risk of like the therapist siding with one party or the other. So like, it is like, we do have to be very, very intentional about staying neutral. In your situation, on my end, it's hard when I know one party sucks like, and the other half of the relationship is being mishandled, essentially, is like not being treated well. So it's a very fine line between like, okay, how much of this are we doing like relational work, and how much is, it doesn't matter how much relational work we do, because there's no relational work to be done in a relationship where one partner is not safe. So like that was very tricky for a long time with you, and like navigating that within like, how much can we do that's actually safe for you versus like, how do we plan to exit when the timing is appropriate?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a rough That was a rough one for sure. What was it like having Because I'm sure that was, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. How was it knowing that like I was seeing, because when this is something I do differently from a lot of therapists, I don't only see couples together. I kind of force them to do individual as well. And like, we're not doing it unless I see you separately also. So how was it knowing that like I was seeing both of you and then sometimes we were doing together sessions?
I'm trying to put myself back where I was.
Yeah.
I know I was very stressed out, and
for sure.
I just remember being like a chihuahua, just like a shaken, just because I would, have a really good session with you and everything seemed great. We'd have a game plan, and then he would come home and tell me, oh, this is what you should be doing, or
Amanda says you should do all these things. And it's like, I never said any of that.
Yeah. And then, so I would wait. I think we were doing weekly when we first started, or two, I can't remember, but it would, he said I had to do this and this. And it took me a while to get really comfortable and just fully realize, hey, she's not against me. She's here to help me. What he says is full on bull crap. Like, that's not true.
Right. And yeah, I find that a lot of people will try and weaponize me in it. Like, oh, well, she says that, or you need to bring that up in therapy. And it's like, okay, that's its own red flag on top of like other red flags. But it did take a while. And I remember it being like, I remember when you decided to leave and we had a few sessions when you were gone, like he was gone.
Yeah.
And then me coming to the realization, like, oh, I didn't actually know how bad it was because we hadn't talked about how bad it was. And I was like, oh my God, if I had known sooner, we would have had different conversations earlier. So just so many interesting dynamics there. And then like your growth over the period. And this is the point that one of the reasons I asked you to interview, besides the fact that I just enjoy you as a human, is like the growth that you've had in like so scared for good reason, right? Like you were not safe. So then like fear is obviously a survival mechanism, like so anxious, so much like scanning and protection mode and survival mode and like right, like kind of thing. Like really coming into your own and being like, fuck it, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then you were very interesting as well, because this is something a lot of people don't know, is that you can do a lot of healing work leaving an abusive relationship, but the rest of the work only happens when you enter into a new relationship. So people will be like, oh, I'm super good. And they're really good single. And then they get into a new relationship and they're like, oh God, this shit came up and I don't know what to do with it. And it's like, right, that's the second half of the work. And we've been through that whole arc for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have thoughts or want to expand on that, that would be lovely.
Oh yeah. That was, single life. I was like, yeah, heck yeah, man, I'm doing great. Yeah. I'm basically healed now. And then, I got into the relationship and I'm like, yeah, this is great. And then it was great till it wasn't. And it happens.
Well, it's different work, right? Like the work that you do to be okay single and the work that you do to be in a healthy relationship are very different. And it's different triggers. Like a relationship is going to trigger things that you just don't experience when you're single because you don't have a partner or partners. Yeah. So what were some of the things that like when you got into a relationship, if you don't mind sharing, that you were like, oh, I didn't realize this would come up?
Well, just communication. That was one that was the beginning. It was great. Communication was good. And I wasn't afraid to, be in Walmart longer than an hour then. And that was really cool. Like I could drive, to town and be totally okay and not have to look over my back.
Yeah.
And then there were times where insecurities would come up and it's like I knew where we had talked in our sessions, okay, well, this is what I need to do like with my insecurity. So maybe if I would just, well, no, it's okay. Totally okay. This is what's happening, but I'm not realizing that the other half has not done quite the healing as I did, or the inner work like I did. And looking back now, I'm like, oh, I was expecting them to be healed like I was. Okay.
Or to have like the same skill set.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just don't work like that. But
yeah, it doesn't until I think, and you and I have talked about this, like relationships get better. The next relationship is better than the last, but it's very, very rare that someone goes from like the relationship that you experienced when you were married, which was very not good, to someone who's like wonderful. It's like, that's typically too big of a jump. So it is like the next person is better, and then the next person is better. And then like 2 or 3 down the line is like, oh, then it's like really, really good.
Yeah.
Because your standards also raise each time, and you're like, oh yeah, we're definitely not doing like the bar is so low, the devil's playing limbo with it, but now the bar is like 10 feet underground versus 1,000. But it's still, the bar is a little too low.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was what I thought was just, the bestest of the best paintbrush was maybe just in the good, section. Yeah. Still great, but not for
good, but not top of the line. Yeah.
No, it doesn't paint my wall like I need it to. So,
right.
But lessons learned.
Yeah, for sure.
And life went on, and now I'm actually in a really good relationship. So,
yay!
It's kind of funny. Is my first love, but we have grown tremendously, and
adorable.
It's so nice to talk to someone, and you don't have to rethink about your conversation. Yeah. Just, oh, well, I went to Dollar General. Oh, that's right. I told you I was going to Walmart, but I went to Dollar General instead.
Yeah.
Like little simple things like that I was always looking out for those things. Like, oh man, he's going to think I'm lying, or he does not care.
Are you okay saying like some of the things that you were experiencing when you were with your ex-husband? You don't have to at all. But I think it would be very interesting for people to hear. Again, not that you have to do it at all.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, so grocery store trips, that was like my, just your average grocery store trip. When it started pushing close to an hour, I was getting texts. Mm-hmm. I was definitely accused of cheating then at a grocery store. I had to be very cautious. I groomed dogs on the side. I had to be very cautious of my male clients. And very careful how I talk to them or when they text me. Mm-hmm. Even having like men on my social media, whether I'd went to school with them or just knew them through the years, I had to be very cautious, or my ex-husband would go through and send them messages. Oh. So always having to look over my shoulder, constantly getting told that there was a private investigator following me. So anywhere I went, I was always looking behind me, looking over my shoulder, watching every car. Even at work, I would peek out the windows. Like if there was a car broke down, I'm like, oh, yep, that person's got to be watching me. I just know it. Wow. And things like that. Always cautious who I talk to. Even my friends. Very careful how I talk to them, what I told them. Because according to him, he was all buddy with them, which...
Right. Which was not true.
It's not true at all.
You dislike him so much, yeah. Yeah. But when you're in that mode, it's like it just seems so true.
Yeah, you just felt like I was in a deep dark hole. Yeah. With no way out there for a while.
Joke's definitely on him.
Yes. And, with my daughter, like very cautious about that. Like he would, tell her to call me things. And that was very hard too. I I don't know, can I say whatever? I don't know.
Oh yeah, girl.
And he would have her call me a whore. And, you know, at this time, that time she was 3. So granted, she has no idea what she's saying, but hearing that from your child, it's like, holy crap.
And then of course, denying all of that.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And then, you know, things got physical. That was always hard because I never knew how to de-escalate those situations. And that was one of the reasons too, I wanted to come along so I could, you know, hey, how do I avoid this while trying to figure out or save money to get out or get him out? Especially with my daughter, because I probably could have left, but not with her.
Well, it's easier to plan for one person than one person and a young child. And it is a very delicate balance, like, because there's so many things that, like, literally so many things I teach clients that you literally were not able to do because it would have put your life in danger. Yeah. So it's like, okay, how do we prioritize safety first? Where it's like, sometimes the answer, as much as I hate it, is like, your dogs are fine. As much as I hate it, sometimes the answer is like, take it until you can leave, which sucks. Like, you know, but it sucks for you as well because you're like, yeah, I'm the person living it. But yeah, it definitely was a delicate balance, and it does take a lot of planning, which is one of the reasons like so many people stay. Is the amount of planning that it takes can be very overwhelming. Yeah.
And I just remember you explaining flight, fight, or phone, and you kind of compared the phone into kind of like a snake in the grass waiting to strike. So I was just waiting for my opportunity to leave with Wes or with my daughter. So that was
because a lot of people think like waiting is the same thing as like staying, and it's not. Like biding time. Oh, that's where I was going. Like biding time is not the same thing as like, okay, well, I'm just doing nothing. It's like, no, you're just biding time. Like it was a very delicate situation for sure.
Yeah, it was.
And then it was navigating all the aftermath, right? So like, the other crappy thing that I hope people understand is like, if they know someone or if they're experiencing leaving a partner who is abusive, like it doesn't typically end when you leave or when their friend or whoever they know leaves. Like there's aftermath of like so much cruelty, especially when there's a kid involved. Like obviously he's, you know, never not her dad, but there's typically like all this involved drama that you have to navigate afterwards.
Like leaving, I thought, well, I kind of didn't because you kind of gave me the heads up, but it's like, oh man, that will be a weight. That will be a weight off my shoulders.
Eventually it was.
Yeah, but I just remember you told me, we're still in the swamp, okay? We're still in the swamp. You're going to get out of that swamp. I'm like, are you sure? Because it's just...
Are you sure? Because there's an alligator biting my ass. And it's... Yeah, people do get out. I mean, no matter how crappy their partners are, like there is a point where they, you know, find a new victim, like literally is what typically happens. But yeah, the aftermath is rough. So what were some of the things that were helpful for you throughout that process? And then you hadn't done therapy before you came, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay, cool. So first question then, and we'll get to the second one, is like, what did you expect? And how was it compared to what you got?
So I guess just the general, like you see on TV, like you're sitting in a chair and getting asked, well, how does that make you feel? Or, you know, well, you are married, so
oh God,
this is part of it. So those were some of my fears. And then like after I talked to you, it was on the way home. I remember, oh yeah, I'm finally going to get out of this hellhole. I got this. Like I'm still scared shitless, but I knew that I made the right decision. Like that was the good. I'm like, okay, so he didn't realize what he just did, but
Did not.
He didn't.
I remember saying that so many times where we're just like, he did not think that through.
No, he did not read, because you're all about empowering people, your true self. And because I remember telling you, I was like, he didn't read your website. Like, he did not read it.
No, I think what happened is he was like, oh, she's a woman. I can charm her. Like, I really think that's part of what he thought.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, no, that did not work.
Did not work.
Because I remember we didn't have many, but where we came together, and you had corrected him on something, and I remember on the inside, I'm like, yeah. It was great. I'm like, yes, he has been corrected.
Yeah.
Someone stood up to him. Ha ha.
And then I'm sure he was like, that bitch.
I was like, home is going to suck, but it was so worth it. I got to watch it. Heck yes.
Yeah. You are actually one of the reasons that I do see couple people individually. Also, I think only seeing a couple together is just stupid, but it is one of the reasons, because it's like, you really don't know what's going on until you get someone alone. And I really don't understand why that's not a normal thing. Because even in couples where like it's much more balanced or like safe, where it's a much more healthy dynamic, like there are things that you just don't want to say. Like, what if I want to complain about my partner? I don't want to do it in front of them. Like, I want to work through it. So yeah, so it's actually one of the reasons is like, oh, like really being able to get the full story. So that's so sweet of you to say that it felt like, oh, okay, I can like actually get out of this. Yeah.
I wasn't, I didn't talk about it to anyone, what was going on. Like, I basically was living a double life. Like, as far as anyone knew, I was content. Like,
right.
People say now, oh yeah, we knew you weren't happy. Cool. But they didn't know what was going on. They knew I wasn't happy, but they didn't know the extent of what was going on.
Right, of course, yeah.
I agree with having the separate, meetings, because if you've lived a double life like that, it's so easy to pretend, be like, oh yeah, well, I mean, it's not really that bad,
right?
Especially
when that's the safer choice, right? If like being honest is going to put your life in danger, yeah, I'm going to fucking lie too. Like,
yeah, like, oh yeah, it's great, and then
it's great, it's fine. I'm the problem, yeah, right. Right, and then you go home and you're like, God damn it. Yeah. So, what were some of the things that were helpful for you?
So, pretty much how we, like, in arguing where you stayed calm, you didn't escalate as well, or not necessarily not fight back, but I pretty much just kind of stayed sort of quiet, but I can't. You would tell me to say maybe or and
to not agree but not disagree.
Yes, and that I would do that quite a bit, and a couple times it would escalate, and it was just like, oh, okay, that is not when I use that. Okay,
yeah,
it was trial and error a few times, but I don't know. You taught me how to like de-escalate, so not, or I don't know if that's the right word, but
makes sense.
Diffuse the bomb.
Diffuse. Well, it's both, right? It's like a lot of people when they're in that kind of dynamic think that like explaining is helpful because you're logical. So you're like, oh, obviously they just don't understand. So then you explain and they're like, why are you justifying? And it's like, oh. So just being like, yeah, maybe, or like just being non-committal tends to go a good way without people betraying themselves, because we don't want you to agree to something that's not true, but getting out of an argument is more valuable. It's just such a fine line in that kind of a dynamic where it's like, yes, I want you to be honest. No, I don't want you to be unsafe. So like if lying is the way you get out of it, fuck it. Lie, agree to whatever to get out of the situation. We just don't want to stay there.
That's probably the thing that I found the most to keep me the safest. because I would always, I'd get called a liar or a cheater, and, whether I agreed or disagreed, I was still going to get hurt. So it was like, well, do I say yeah? Do I say no? And finally, the maybe, he was so thrown off by it that
so confused.
It was like, ooh. And then sometimes it was whatever was going on, it just didn't work, but nothing would have worked. I mean, that.
Right. Yeah. What were some other things that were helpful? Some like mindset shifts or things that you remember?
I know it's thinking a lot that this is not permanent, and having someone tell me, hey, you don't have to live like this. That we had talked about marriage, and that, kind of learning about having that mindset, like, oh, you get married and you stay together.
Yeah.
I remember
so toxic.
Getting that out of my head, like, well, I've made it. I've tried to make it work. There is no more trying. It's
and no one can tell you didn't try. That's true. And it is a lot of unlearning beliefs that were handed to you, but like that certainly didn't serve you. Like, and a lot of those beliefs miss the nuance. It's like, don't not try for the marriage. Like I hope that's the point, is like, well, once you get married, it's forever, as in like put effort into it. But if that becomes a prison where your life is in danger, like, fuck that belief, out of the marriage. Like,
negative ghost
literally, but like, if God's going to be mad at me because I didn't stay and get beat, I have some questions.
Yes. I think he understood. Like, I don't need to be on the cross either, sir. Like, get me off.
Right. Like, I do not need to be sacrificed. Thank you.
No, I've had enough, sir.
Yeah, I've had enough, sir. Get me off this cross. Literally. But it is so toxic because those beliefs are so normal. And then typically they're also parroted by well-meaning people in your life who are like, well, this is really, you're staying it. And, and they really give you advice that's garbage, but it's all they know.
Yeah.
So then you're like, well, shit. What do I do with that?
And especially like with the kids or having kids as well, you're told, oh, you got to make it work for the kids. They really need both parents. They need a 2-parent dynamic.
No, they don't.
Do they though? Because I don't think my kid needs to be in this environment.
Do they need this particular 2-parent dynamic, or can I find another one?
Yeah, like,
can I find another parent? Yeah, so that's definitely something people deal with all the time, is like what people say to them. I hope they don't know the full story and then say that. But sometimes people will know the full story and be like, well, what are you teaching the kids? And it's like, well, if I stay, what am I teaching them? Good Lord.
Yeah. Like, oh, just, because I remember you telling me that.
Yeah.
What are you teaching her?
Right.
Like,
and what was he teaching her? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which, like, that typically, like, I use that because it's a slap in the face. Like, I intentionally say that to stab my clients in the heart when they don't get it. Yeah. Or they don't want to get it, right? Like, you knew you were leaving and that was one of our goals, but like some people, it takes a little longer. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to stab you right in the heart with that question. And then they're like, oh, shit.
Ouch, but I got you.
Right. Yeah. But sometimes I really have to stab people in the heart to get the point across. What about some of the things you learned after you left? Like, how is that adjustment? Because it definitely takes a little while to adjust.
Yes. It's not just like a switch. It was, it was, I still learned how to deal with him after, even not really out of his control, but where that just anxiety just left or whatever that was. It was just like a black cloud of danger.
Well, like, conditioning, really. It was so much conditioning. Like, when you live in a surveillance state for so long, like, yeah, it's like people who get out of prison, right? It like takes a while to adjust to being out of prison.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, that's true.
But and then how to like handle the text with him. That was, because then I would catch myself kind of falling back into that, but then it's like, wait a minute, and I started getting a little more clever and just not answering, and that felt so great the first couple times where it was, I don't have to answer that. Like, I go home and he's not there. This is great. And then, phone calls, 14 to 26 phone calls. I don't have to answer them. I'm like, heck yeah, man.
Yeah.
And then just navigating my family too, because they didn't know and they were learning new things. So trying to how to tell my trauma without fully sharing it, or how I remember you telling me, like, people aren't going to be able to handle your trauma quite like you did, or they're not going to know what to do. So handling that once they, found out some of the stuff, that was,
and it's not always helpful. Like, part of that conversation was like, it's not always helpful for people to know everything, especially like, and I'm sure I feel like probably it was an adjustment coming from like talking to someone like me, where like, obviously I can handle that amount of information. Yeah. Because the brain will generalize and be like, oh, if I share it, people will be receptive. And it's like, I'm receptive, but I have the capacity to really handle a lot of shit where like normal people don't, especially family members. Like, I remember talking about like your parents, and that's a totally different than like telling a friend, where it's like being mindful of navigating like their reaction is helpful to do.
Very cautious what I shared, for sure. I know my work family at that time, they were, oh man,
they were so great.
They were great.
Yeah,
they were there through it all.
Which is so important, right? It's like have a support system, even if it's not family, because sometimes people, like, everybody has different capacities for support.
Yes.
So not everybody knows what to do.
Which my family would have went through, no man's land for me.
Oh, sure.
But they definitely they would have went about it the redneck way if I shared everything. And I know better than that.
Maybe not the best way.
So I'm very cautious what I share.
Yeah.
Pretty much take.
Right. And but that's necessary, right? Yeah. Like, it's But I'll tell you something that was so fun to witness was you just coming into who you are from this, like, I can't be myself and I can't speak, or I couldn't be myself and I couldn't speak up and I couldn't be sarcastic or witty or quick-witted. And like, that is very much who you are. Like, you're very quick-witted, you're sarcastic, you're funny, you like to joke, and like to watch you come back into that was so exciting. It was like so exciting.
It was definitely fun, because I'd say something and like, oh yeah, no one's here to hurt. Like, I can say it and it's totally okay. Like, instead of just thinking it all the time. So that was really cool too. And to actually fully learn who I was again, without someone telling me who to be or what they don't like or do like, or, like putting the purple in my hair.
So cute.
Or the tattoos, like, those are things that I like.
Right.
I'm going to.
Right.
And let's just take it or leave it now. Used to, it was like, I'll just put it on the back burner and
I'll change everything about myself. Right.
But now it's like, no, go ahead, you good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a, like, I really love working with people who have been in abusive relationships to come out of it, because when they come out of it, the shift is like night and fucking day, but also in like a different universe. It's like night and day isn't even like big enough. They're also in like a different universe where they're just like, yeah, it's such a difference. And we talked a lot about like people pleasing and like self-sacrificing and how that makes us miserable. And like,
yes,
not the vibe. And it took so long to convince you that like it's actually the way to go.
Yeah,
which, right? Like you did come from a situation where like it was literally unsafe to be authentic and honest. So like, you know, I get that. But it does take some convincing for people sometimes. We're like, I promise you're not gonna die now. Like your situation definitely, it was not any amount of safe. But like now that situation has changed, like you're not gonna die. And then your brain's like, no, that sounds really fake. Yeah. Sounds fake. No, thank you.
Because I remember you talking about the gremlins in our brain, and I remember they just stupid little fuckers go.
Can you explain what gremlin brain is?
So it's where your brain. Well, I remember one time I called them lot lizards, but I know that's not right.
I love that you called them lot lizards
because I couldn't remember what you said.
Lot lizard brain. Everyone's gonna Google lot lizard.
Like, oh, please don't hit the end button, okay?
What's her background? Redneck.
Yes.
From the country.
So
it was not a lot lizard, by the way, guys.
No, I'm not. I promise.
A lot lizard would say
that. True. But it's pretty much where you're like your body or your mind is like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I should be doing. You know, this is the exit strategy. And then the little gremlin is like, oh man, but this is what's going to happen. They're not going to be happy. That's not right. Oh, that's going to be awful. We should just stay here and just stay. That's safe. Yeah, this is going to be great. And then you're like, this is not great. There's no great to this.
Yeah. I call gremlin brain like the survival mode part of your brain where it's like, keep small, don't argue, avoid, run away. And it's like, that doesn't help in the long term. Sometimes it's the right answer, right? Yeah. Not, the answer is not always stand up for yourself or fight. Like there is nuance to that. But gremlin brain is like, I predetermine when people are going to be upset and avoid anything to make them upset. No, bitch, that's not your responsibility.
We should say yes to everything we don't want to do because we don't want to make other people upset. It's okay if we're upset. We can deal with that.
Right. It's okay if I hate my life. That's totally fine. It's like, that's the gremlin.
We can hate our life. They can't. So we got to make them happy. No, we don't. We're not doing that.
We don't have to do that. No, we don't.
No.
Yeah. That's so true.
Looking back now, I giggle at myself. So I'm like, you goober.
Oh, you tried so hard. But it's like, the fact that you can do that, a lot of people get stuck in looking back with like shame and guilt. I should have known better. And it's like, how the fuck would you have known better? Like,
yeah,
you would never have known.
In high school when I was going through. I didn't have you to tell me what to do.
Right. I wasn't this yet, so I would have been probably completely unhelpful and very judgmental. Was not ready. Yeah, but it's like to look back and be like, oh, Evie, like you did your best.
Sweet little girl.
Sweet, precious thing. You did your best. And it worked, right? Like you're still alive. So hey, it worked. We just
made it. 10 out of 10. I wouldn't recommend, but hey, we got here and
we not recommend, but it did work.
It worked. It did work.
It did.
But yeah.
It's like digging a 30-foot hole with a shovel when there's a backhoe right there. And then people are like, I'm going to use a shovel. And you're like, why don't you use the backhoe? And they're like, what's a backhoe? And it's like, oh, baby.
Yeah.
Let me show you what a backhoe is. That's what I think of as therapy. I'm like, let me show you what a backhoe is because you're working so hard and for no reason other than you don't know better.
Yeah.
That sucks. What about when you started seeing people, like what were some of the things that were helpful for that? Which I remember one being like, don't go to their place first if you don't know them.
For whatever reason, I had a hard time with that. I remember giving several of my friends from work, like, here's my location, because clearly I'm struggling with this one. But, like, I just remember, like, I'd have a hard time. It was either, oh man, everything's great. I'll overlook this minor thing, but everything else looks great. But usually the minor thing was a big red flag.
But comparatively, it was more minor than being threatened at a private investigator.
Exactly. I was like, but it's not my ex, so we're off to a good start.
Right, we're at least better. Which is one of the unhelpful things that the brain does, is because that was so bad. Your brain's like, oh my god, this is so much better, and it's like, it is, but still not great.
Yeah, the gremlins were like, we're in heaven. Like, no, this is just an upgrade from hell. No,
right. We gotta get to the circle instead of the seventh circle.
There's some more levels we got to go through. So
I remember too, I remember when things were good, there were, obviously the next relationship got better and the one was better and whatever. And you would be like, they're really nice to me and it's weird.
Yeah, that's a hard time with that.
That's something I hear every time though, when people leave a really bad relationship and they get into one that's better. Every single time without fail, they say it's good and it's really weird. And it's like, yes, because you were used to a hurricane that's also on fire, and now it's not on fire, and you're like, where's the fire? There's supposed to be fire, and it's like, no, there's not. There's not supposed to be fire.
Because I remember talking to you about one, telling you they told me I had a beautiful soul, and I remember you telling me, yeah, that's great and all, but they don't know you. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right.
Right? They talk to you for 20 minutes. It's so nice. It's like, okay, but they can't say that because they don't know you from. I mean, they're not wrong. They just don't know you well enough to really say it.
So,
and then there was navigating. Is this love bombing? Is this whatever? There are also all those questions that I remember us going through, where it's like, okay, let's navigate. Is this just someone who's excited about you, or is this someone who's like, I'm gonna love bomb you and make you obsessed with me? And it's like, let's figure out.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
With me, it was either, don't come close, or, oh my gosh, you're so nice. Let's just go. Let's just fall. Let's just do it. But now we're in a good spot now.
Yeah, we're learning. Oh, I love that. Any particular things that, for people who are listening, who, one, I'm sure both think that we're brilliant and hilarious, which they should. Sorry, we're both taken. Anything that you would want them to know if they're because I assume people searching are going to say, what's therapy like? And then they're going to hopefully binge all these episodes. Anything that you would like them to know just based on your experience with it?
Don't be afraid to just do it. I mean, if you're lucky like I was, maybe your partner will force you into it. But just kidding.
Lucky.
That was sarcasm.
Right.
To the crowd, sarcasm, okay? No.
Right.
But in all reality, you're going to learn a lot about yourself, your true self, down in the depths of your self-land. You're going to learn things that you had no clue. You had no.
I almost spit out my water with you. Your self-land.
Because there's things I had no clue, because I was always taught this, or yeah, you have a backbone, but don't use it. Be a lady.
Oh God.
Don't no. I will smash you with my backbone now. Don't do that.
Immediately makes me angry. I'm like, now.
But just don't be afraid. That first visit is difficult, but not only because it's something new. It's not. It's just a new adventure, and you'll gain a whole shit ton of good stuff from it.
I hope so. As long as your therapist knows what they're doing.
Yes, if you have a good therapist, which I know one. Okay.
We know it. We know at least 5. I have 4 girls that work for me.
Which I, like, anybody I talk to, I'm like, hey, I went to therapy and it's great. Like, you should go. Maybe you should try it. Like, I'm not afraid to talk about it. It's not anything to be embarrassed about. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It means you're working on yourself. You know,
isn't it crazy? Like, it's pretty bananas to me how, one, people who are like, I don't believe in therapy, it's like, bitch, you should.
Yes.
Maybe that's the problem. But also the people who are the loudest critics are typically doing the most fucked up shit. And it's like, okay, but like your life is a dumpster fire. So maybe don't make fun of people who are bettering their life just because you're stubborn and a coward. Like, oh, yes. It's always like the loudest critics are the people who need it the most. And it's like, bro, you just stop. Please go to therapy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a good tool. Something you can do for yourself that's good. I mean, it's, you know, some people tan, some people go get pedicures, but the self.
Well, and those are not transformational. Like, no. Like what we did, what I do. He's like, what was it you said? Once you said, you untangle the spaghetti and make it waffles.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, whatever that means.
And it's so kind of funny because the guy, or it's not kind of, it is, the guy that I'm dating now, he brought that up too. That's something we actually used to talk about.
What?
And I forgotten that I had actually talked about that before, but
that's so funny.
Years ago we had brought that up, and I can't remember if it was from a video his mom showed us.
And that was the term?
Spaghetti and waffles. Like, men have waffle brain where it's compartments. It's just one thought at a time. And then women have spaghetti brain, and it's like, oh, I got to go to the store, but I also got to get gas, and then I got to get snacks because we're going on a field trip in 2 weeks, and well, might as well go ahead and have the snacks.
I also think, though, that's a cop-out for lazy men. Where it's like, well, your brain just thinks of more things, so can you plan it? And it's like, no, bitch, learn. I'm not doing it. But yeah, I mean, that's where I actually love that you brought up like the pedicures and manicures thing or tanning. Because a lot of people confuse self-care with actual self-care. Yeah. It's not just like things that cost money. And it's completely different. Like, we rewired your brain and your nervous system. That's what a good therapist does. Mm-hmm. They like take your brain, they dig the rod out, they plant things that are helpful, and then they rewire your nervous system. Like, that's what good therapy does, which is one of the intentions for this podcast, is to like tell people like your therapist should be teaching you things, not just listening to you.
Yes.
But like, your nail tech is not going to do that for you.
No. Or your hairstylist.
They're grossly underpaid.
Yes.
Grossly underpaid. But yeah.
Self-care for the foundation. Like, your foundation needs work, so.
Right. Agreed. Especially just people who grow up in this culture is like, this culture has so many things it teaches that are toxic. No matter where you grow up, like, it's just lots of things get embedded that are toxic.
Yes.
Does anything else like come to mind for you to share? Anything you feel?
My little thought bubble. Something I heard a lot in our sessions was they'll just die mad about it, and that has been in the back of my mind constantly. If they don't like it, they'll die mad about it.
I'll die mad, but I'll die happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be happy. So
I decided I'm going to do like a merch line where one of the things is going to say, let them die mad.
Hey, I will wear it like a billboard. I'm down.
I may just get it as a tattoo with like a cute little skull and some flowers. Would be adorable.
That would be cool too. Hey, I'm all for tattoos.
I know. So. We'll do both. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah. People, the first time you heard me say that, what was your reaction?
Well, my first thought was, holy shit, she is a badass. Like, that is badass. I want to be like that. a lot of our meetings were like, I'm like, man, I want to be like that. That's what I want to do. I want to be like that. Because to me, you are strong. You are just, no, it's my world. You're allowed in it if I say you're allowed in it. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want that.
Welcome to boundaries.
Yeah. That was, and that's been, we're getting there. We're not Amanda yet, but we're just chilling.
We've done it a decade longer, to be fair. And they started there. So let them die is something my dad would say all the time. Let them die. I don't care. He would usually say they can die. They can die. And I didn't realize that was like, that people thought that was mean until I started like telling people that he would say that. He would also tell us if he was mad at us when I was young. He'd be like, you can go to your funeral, you can die and I won't go to your funeral. And I'm like, I really think he would go to my funeral. I don't think that's true, Dad. Which my dad is a wonderful man for everyone listening. He just was the drama sometimes. But I grew up with him saying like, let them die. And I'm just like, oh, that's normal. Like if people are mad at you, it's not your problem. Unless like, obviously you're intentionally being an asshole, then it's your problem. Mm-hmm. But if you're just like living your life and doing what you think is right and not intentionally hurting people, I was like, oh, that's a normal response. Like they can die. And then, great. Now I teach it all the time. Like totally works.
It does. I say it in my head multiple times a day.
I love
especially that. In customer service type jobs.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I can die. I can die mad.
I can die mad. Yeah. People think I'm really mean when, like, people who just want to complain and not fix anything, I'm just like, okay, then die. And people are like, oh my God. And I'm like, not literally die, but like, if you're going to drown in 2 inches of water, like, that's not my problem.
If you're not going to fix it.
You can flick your head up.
Yeah.
At any time, feel free, or don't, but like not my problem. Yeah. Which the first time people hear that, they're typically like, oh, I could never, especially if they're female because they've been socialized to be nice for their entire lives. And then they're like, what? And I'm like, and then by the end, they're always like, well, they can die mad about it. And I'm just like, yes, bitch.
Yes, because I know if I'd have came to you earlier, I would have been like, oh my gosh, that's so mean.
Oh, yeah.
Where I was, like, I want to be like that. That's what I want. I want to be like that.
Well, and I think it was so far from, obviously it was like inside of you the whole time, but it was very far from like who you were allowed to be then, that it's like, yeah. But thriving though. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Dude, thank you so much.
You're welcome anytime. I'll be here all week.
If you have a few, I'll stop recording and then we can hang out.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
You're very welcome anytime. Hope I did what I needed to.
You were beautiful. And I think people are just going to resonate so much